Have you ever found yourself stuck in a moment where everything feels like it's falling apart, and a quiet voice inside your head starts whispering, "It's their fault. It's your family's fault for not supporting you. It's your school's fault for never teaching you how life really works. It's the country's fault for not giving you the chances you deserve. Or maybe it's that one person's fault, the one who broke your heart and walked away." You know where that voice comes from, right? It's from your mind, the part of you that's always searching for meaning, for an explanation, for someone to blame. Because in the middle of pain and confusion, the mind wants something solid to hold on to. And blaming someone, it feels safe, at least for a moment. But let me ask you something. Has blaming others ever truly changed anything? Have you ever felt better, even for real, after saying, "If they hadn't done that to me, I'd be happy now"? Or was it just a temporary relief before the same hurt came back again? And this, right here, is where a philosopher like Friedrich Nietzsche comes in. He wasn't the kind of man who told people what they wanted to hear. He told them what they needed to face. And there's one line of his that sounds simple, but if you take it seriously, it could change how you live your life. The weak are always forced to justify themselves, while the strong simply bear responsibility. Pause for a moment. Really think about this. When you're always blaming someone else, you're telling yourself that you have no power. You're basically saying, "Everything is outside my control. I'm just a victim." But what if just once you said, "Yeah, maybe I was wronged. Maybe things were unfair, but I still get to choose what I do next." That right there is power. This video isn't about fancy quotes or motivational hype. It's a serious invitation. An invitation to face yourself honestly. To stop giving your power away to the past. To stop putting your life in other people's hands. You might not be to blame for everything that happened, but you are responsible for how you respond now. And that changes everything. So in this video, we're going to go deeper into Nietzsche's view. You'll hear two powerful, real stories about people who are broken by the world but refuse to stay in blame mode. Instead, they rebuilt themselves from nothing. And by the end of this, you'll be facing a choice. Will you keep looking for someone to blame, or will you finally take your life back? You know why Nietzsche puts so much emphasis on personal responsibility? Because he believed that modern people, more than ever before, are running away from themselves. We're constantly looking for someone to blame, a system, a parent, a partner, a country, a past mistake. But Nietzsche believed that real growth begins the moment you stop pointing fingers and start saying, "No one is coming to save me. This is my life, and I'm the one responsible for it." He once said, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded." Let that sink in. If you don't learn to lead yourself, life will find others to lead you instead. Think about it. The moment you drop your own responsibility, someone else will gladly take control of your time, your choices, your direction. And slowly, without even noticing, you stop living your life. You start living someone else's expectations. But let's be honest for a second. Why is it so hard to take full responsibility for your life? Because it hurts. Because it means facing parts of yourself that are uncomfortable, messy, maybe even painful. It means admitting, yeah, maybe I wasn't treated fairly, but I still made choices. And those choices shaped my path. That's not an easy truth to swallow, but that's exactly what builds real strength. When you finally say, "I'm done playing the victim," you'll feel fear creeping in. Because even though being a victim feels miserable, it's also familiar. There's a weird kind of comfort in telling yourself, "I'm like this because they did that to me." It gives you an excuse to stay where you are. But when you say, "No, I'm hurt, yes, but I'm going to move forward anyway, even if I fall again," that's when you step into your own power. There's another Nietzsche quote I want you to remember. "What does not kill me makes me stronger." You've heard it before, I'm sure. But this isn't a cliche. It's a mindset, a way of standing up in the middle of your pain and saying, "This didn't destroy me. So now it's a tool. Now it's part of my strength." That's not just for philosophers or extraordinary people. That's for you. You can think like that. You can live like that. You can choose like that. But it starts with one decision. Stop blaming others. Because as long as someone else is to blame, you're handing away your power. You're telling yourself that your identity depends on their actions. But when you say, "Maybe they hurt me. Maybe life has been unfair, but I still get to choose who I become," that's when you take your identity back. This video isn't saying your pain isn't real. It's not saying people haven't wronged you. What it's saying is, at some point, you have to choose whether you want to keep reliving that pain or start building something beyond it. You get to choose who writes the story of your life, them or you. Let me tell you a real story, not a motivational quote, not some fantasy, a real moment in the life of one of the most famous inventors in history, Thomas Edison. When Edison was a little boy, he came home from school one day holding a sealed letter. He gave it to his mother and said, "My teacher told me to give this only to you." She opened the letter, read it silently, and her eyes filled with tears. "Mom, what does it say?" the boy asked. She smiled and answered, "It says your son is a genius. The school's too small to teach him, and they don't have the resources. Please educate him at home." So she did. From that day forward, she taught him herself. Years later, after his mother had passed and Edison had become world famous, he found that letter again, buried in an old drawer. He opened it. This time, he read it with his own eyes. And what it actually said was this: "Your son is mentally ill and cannot be taught in this school. He is not fit to be in a classroom. Please keep him at home." Just sit with that for a second. Imagine if his mother had read that out loud as it was. Imagine if she had believed it. If she'd said, "They're right. My son is broken." Maybe you wouldn't even know Edison's name today. Maybe you'd be sitting in the dark right now because no one had invented the light bulb. See, here's what's powerful. That moment could have broken him. It could have broken her. But instead of blaming the school, blaming the system, or even blaming her son, she chose something radical. She chose to believe in possibility. And that single choice changed everything. Nietzsche would call that a moment of will to power. The moment when you stop saying, "Why is this happening to me?" and start saying, "What am I going to do with this?" Because life will give you moments where people look you in the eye and say, "You're not enough. You're not smart. You're not capable." And you'll be tempted to believe them. You'll be tempted to carry those labels as if they define you. But you get to decide, will you let those labels become limits or fuel? If Edison or his mother had wasted their lives blaming others, nothing would have been built. But they chose something harder and better. They took responsibility even when it was unfair. They turned rejection into motivation. And you have that choice too. It doesn't matter how many people told you you're not good enough. It doesn't matter how many doors slammed in your face. It doesn't matter if your past is full of failure or pain. What matters is whether you'll keep blaming or finally say, "This is my life, and I will own it." Right now, it's not just a story, it's a mirror that asks, are you ready to stop waiting for someone to tell you what you are and finally decide for yourself? The choice is yours. You know why letting go of the victim role is so damn hard and painful? Because even with all its pain, that role gives you meaning. It gives you an identity. When you say, "I'm a victim," suddenly a lot of things make sense. You don't have to search for reasons why you're stuck. You don't have to face your wounds. Everything is someone else's fault. You're just the one who got hurt. But Nietzsche had a different take. He said that until you're honest with yourself, until you face the darkness inside, no real progress happens. You're lying to yourself because it's easier, because you don't have to feel guilty, because you don't want to admit that some of the pain you've been carrying might be the result of your own choices. And that's where the real pain begins. When you realize maybe some people who hurt you were never meant to be heroes in your story. When you realize you might have kept yourself stuck in places that did you no good just because you didn't want to accept you had to change. That acceptance is hard, but freeing. Letting go of the victim role means deciding you're done living on other people's pity. You're done buying attention with painful stories. You want to lift yourself up through building, through growth, through conscious choices. Nobody escapes their wounds. Nobody grows big and strong without scars. But there's a difference between someone who says, yeah, I have these scars, but I keep going, and someone who says, because of these scars, I have the right to do nothing. Nietzsche believed in something called self-overcoming. It means you transcend your former self, not by denying the pain, not by suppressing it, but by accepting it, feeling it, and rebuilding yourself with that pain. He said, you must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star, meaning you have to know and accept the chaos inside you, not deny it or just complain about it, and then create something brilliant out of it. And you have that power. You've been through pain like so many great humans have, but you're still here. And if you're still here, that means there's something inside you that won't let you fall. Take that seriously. Wake up that quiet strength. That's where your transformation begins. Let me tell you about someone who showed us what real responsibility looks like, even in the darkest, toughest times. His name was Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and author who survived the Nazi death camps. Those places were the kind of hell where most people gave up hope. But Frankl decided not to give up. When asked how he managed to survive those horrific conditions, he gave a simple but powerful answer. We can't always control our life circumstances, but we always have the power to choose how we respond. That means even when everything's stripped away from you, the ultimate control is still in your hands. You choose to surrender, or you choose to fight. Now, imagine hearing that during your own toughest days. When you feel like the world is against you, when you think there's no way out, the only thing you truly hold is your reaction. Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, where he explains how, even in the depths of darkness, people can find purpose. He says that no matter what's taken from you, no one can steal your meaning or your choice. That's exactly the message Nietzsche hints at when he said, he who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. Meaning, when you have a real reason to live, you can endure any hardship, any situation. So ask yourself, why is it so easy to blame others? Why avoid owning your choices and your reactions? Like Frankl, you face your own battles every day, and you have the power to decide what happens next. Decide to own your life. Decide to face responsibility instead of running from it. That choice, it's where real living begins. Let's talk about something most people get wrong, something that might be holding you back without even realizing it. The difference between taking responsibility and blaming yourself. You see, when people say, take responsibility for your life, many hear, blame yourself for everything that's gone wrong. But that's not what responsibility really means. It's not about shame. It's not about self-punishment. It's about awareness. The awareness that your reactions, your choices, your actions are yours. And that means you have the power to change them. Everyone makes mistakes. You have. I have. We all have. But people who grow, people who move forward, they don't stay stuck in guilt. They own their mistakes, learn from them, and keep moving. Let me ask you something. How often do you replay a bad decision in your head and beat yourself up for it? What if instead of doing that, you asked, what did this teach me? What can I do differently next time? That's taking responsibility. That's how you grow. Real responsibility gives you peace. Because instead of being controlled by your past, you learn from it. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what can I do about it? When you take responsibility, you also take back the power to choose. You choose how to respond. You choose what kind of person you want to be after a failure, after a loss, after a betrayal. You're not a prisoner of your past. You are the author of your next chapter, but only if you stop waiting for someone to save you and start owning your role. You can make that choice right now. You can stop giving your power away to people, to pain, to excuses. You can decide that no matter what's happened to you, it's not going to define what comes next. So here's your challenge, and maybe your opportunity. Let go of the blame. Let go of the guilt. And take responsibility, not because you have to, but because you get to. Because responsibility is freedom. And freedom is what allows you to create a life you're actually proud of.